Women don't talk about money the way we should. Not honestly, not openly, and not with each other. But that's changing. I'm Syama Bunten, founder of Wealth Catalyst. And Getting Rich Together is where the conversation lives. Every week, a different woman, a different path, and a conversation that will change how you think about your own financial power. This community is growing and you belong in it. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review so more women can find their way here. Now, let's get rich together. I am here today with the fabulous Andrea Liebross. Andrea, you and I, when we connected, I was so in awe of your spirit, the way your mind thought, and the energy that you bring into the room. And it really was doubled down and reinforced when you hosted a Wealth Catalyst salon this year. Your ability to bring together intelligent, smart, brilliant women who are heart-centered and curious about the world is an incredible gift. And I'm so honored to have you here today on Getting Rich Together. Friends who are listening, Andrea Liebross is a business coach, keynote speaker, and best-selling author of She Thinks Big. She is the go-to strategic partner for high-achieving women. I met some of them. They will blow your mind, who are already building and are building results-driven businesses that actually fit their lives, not just what society tells us things should look like, but building from our inner being outwards. Through her She Thinks Big podcast and her year-long She Thinks Big collective, Andrea helps established women, business owners, think bigger and help them become the women who they've always meant to be, creating the life of their dreams without certainly burning out, which is something, oh my God, I feel like getting on the call with you today. I was like, burnout, it's time for decompression. So Andrea, welcome to Getting Rich Together. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Syama. I'm excited to be here.
So you undoubtedly are so fabulous. Everyone who knows you comments on how well you dress, how articulate you are, how supportive and helpful you've been in their business and their growth and their success. But certainly someone like you was also once a little girl, maybe not always dressing so fabulously, or maybe she was. But Andrea, take me back to a little girl somewhere around the ages of 10 and 12 years old. Where were you in this big, beautiful planet of ours? What was life like? And what was money like around you?
Well, I was a little girl growing up in a suburb of Boston, Winchester, Massachusetts. My parents still live there. My brother still lives there. Everybody's still there except me. And it was suburbia. It is suburbia. Winchester is a town that's about 8 miles north of Boston. It's on the commuter rail. So a lot of parents or of friends were commuting into Boston on the train. I have one younger brother. He's 4 years younger. And my dad is a CPA and he started his own business when I was 5. And I actually literally remember when that happened. And my mom taught all elementary school, middle school, community college. So she was kind of working part-time at that point. But my dad was really hustling and he was growing his business. He was teaching college classes at night in accounting. And I was probably, let's say 6th grade. And I thought I kind of had my act together probably at that point. I kind of had my act together. But in terms of money, what's very interesting when I reflect back on this now is that money was talked about, but in a very, like in a box almost. I had a bank account and I had a little quarter collector for Christmas. I don't know, does anyone remember these things? Yeah, I'm older than you. So you had these little cardboard collectors that you got from your local bank, and every week maybe you put a quarter in there. I don't know. I remember saving money was something that was talked about. My dad was investing at that point in some properties. I remember that kind of discussion. I don't, though, think I had any sense of what things cost in the world at that age. like what it costs for us to live on a daily basis. I remember everybody had to shut off the lights and turn down the heat because that costs money, electricity. I remember those kinds of things. But I did not have a great sense of the cost of things. And that really wasn't talked about. And nor was it talked about. My parents probably will never listen to this podcast, but there definitely was things like my brother should do this and I should do something different. So there was that going on in one way. In another way, I was kind of indoctrinated that I can do anything that I put my mind to. But there was it to a point, I guess. I don't know. It's an interesting little thing to think about. But yeah, so that was, but I never, to this day, what's also interesting about this is my dad is 87 at this point. He still goes to work every day in his practice. He has an office of maybe 15 people, but he still goes every day. And he still kind of talks to me about money as if I'm 10, which is really interesting.
You're like,
Yeah.
Dad, don't you
Yeah.
see? Like,
Yeah. So I don't know you just asked the question and I just gave you whatever came into my mind. But that's, I don't know. I don't know why that is because I hear him talk to his clients in a very different way, and I've heard so many of those conversations. And that's what I remember as a little girl too, like listening to him talk about these properties that they were investing in. I was just in like the background listening. And I remember that, but I really wasn't ever brought into the conversation.
That's interesting. I have so many more questions. Like today, do you find yourself turning off the lights and are there
Not,
any of those,
I mean, that's a great question, and not really. I at this point, I kind of feel like I can create money, and if I need it, I can create it. And if I want the lights on, they're on. I mean, I do turn the lights off when we leave our house, but it's not as much of like run around, Dad's coming home, everybody shut off the lights, turn down the heat, make sure it's all. So that's you know what though? That was probably partly my mom and not my dad, to be honest, because those were things that she was telling us to do. So that's an interesting little conundrum too. So she
Interesting.
was working part-time in these teaching capacities. So she was home with us, my brother and I, much more than my dad was. So when he came home, it was everybody has to get their act together. I did have though a store made out of a cardboard box that we would put out on the corner, like kind of like a lemonade stand, but we would sell painted rocks. So maybe, Syama, that was my first entrepreneurial adventure. Now that I think.
And then you never looked back, right? It was
Right.
like,
Painted rocks. So if Andrew and Laura, my neighbors, are listening, we were the 3 store keepers and that we would sell painted rocks. So there you go.
I love that. Tell me what you did with these quarter keepers. I mean, it's so cool to think about like a little who's like getting her quarters and like scrolling it away. Was it with the intention of like, I'm doing the right thing? Was it I'm saving for something else? Like, how did you kind of think about like the act of literally taking the quarters and putting them aside?
I think I really was thinking about it more for not buying things for myself, not investing it like it can grow into more money. But it was more that I was saving up so that I could give something to someone else. Like it was a gratitude type of activity or a gifting opportunity. It was giving me the opportunity to give gifts. That was how I was thinking about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Isn't
Like,
that,
what
yeah,
a sweet, like,
that was,
innocent thing.
uh-huh. And I do remember I understood interest and how I could get some interest on money that was actually in the bank account. But that wasn't of utmost importance. Now, okay,
Yeah.
side note, my brother, that was what he was up for. Like he would charge me for things. So he was all about making money. he would he would say, well, that's going to cost you $1, or that's going to cost you. I mean, he was all about making money,
Oh my gosh,
100%
that's
in
funny.
all sorts of ways.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have this show's about you and not him, but have you, is that something that you would say is still a part of his identity?
100%. I mean, he
Yeah.
100%. He went into investment banking, and then ultimately he was a principal in a private equity
Yeah.
shop, and he retired at age 46 or something, and plays golf all the time now, and is investing, like that's his 100%
I
full-time job at this
mean,
point. So yes.
it's so interesting to think about these stories from when we're younger and like how,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
and even me getting the chance to know you today and over the last year, this spirit of generosity is still very much alive inside of you and a part of, really what centers, I think, how you give and how you lead. And so it's also really wonderful to learn the story about you as a little girl. Okay, talk to me about Andrea, the like high school student. So were you like, okay, I crushed it at this rocks business. I'm now moving on to selling, bracelets or other things? Like, did it continue entrepreneurial? Was it like, I'm super smart, heads in the book? Was it, I'm sports,
Okay,
Andrea?
so
Like, what was it like?
I was a really good student, so heads were in the books. I played all sorts of sports, and I was very into theater, and I was I had summer jobs, but they were seen more as opportunities to explore things I was interested in. I wasn't really out there pounding the pavement to make money, even though I was making money. And my parents we always had a job, like in the summer. I did not work during the school year. We always had jobs during the summer. I worked in a jewelry store. I worked as a camp counselor. I was a lifeguard. I did a lot of babysitting. And that was all because that could kind of fit in between all these other things I wanted to do. So, yeah. So that was who I was then. And then I graduated from high school, and I went to Dartmouth College. And again, that was more of like in the books, what are the opportunities for growth, not financial growth necessarily, but personal growth or professional growth in the sense of creating connections or being exposed to different types of businesses. So, and then I think maybe I was thinking like the money will come. I don't know. I really, I don't. And again, my brother was all in it for the money. Like, what's the best financial investment? Where am I going to get the farthest, fastest? So, but my parents really weren't. And this is something that I have written about in my own book, that they were not, I don't even want to say pushing. I think that's a strong word. I don't want to say encouraging either, but it just wasn't talked about. Like, hey, you might want to go down this path because in the end, financially, it might work out better for you. Like, that was not part of the discussion.
Interesting. And
So,
so when you were pursuing your degree in history and psychology, like, did your parents, they never said like, what kind of job are you going to get with that?
no, no
It
one,
was,
no, no. And I find that so now I'm a parent of two 20 somethings, and who have both graduated from college, who both went to business school, who both now are employed. And that is definitely something that I talked about with my kids. Like, what are we doing with this? Where is it going? What's happening? Then there's a lot of, but you have to trust the universe that things will evolve. But that was very important for me to discuss with them, my own children.
yeah,
And maybe
absolutely.
that's because of my own experiences. I mean, I graduated, I moved to Manhattan. I lived in this roach infested, like walk up brownstone on East 52nd Street with these two other girls in this apartment that had drywall built, makeshift walls, we'll call it. And I worked in a big advertising agency, like the big boys. It was DMB&B at that time. and I was an account manager. I didn't love it. I really didn't love it. I stayed there a couple of years and then I went and got my master's degree. I got married and I got my master's degree. Things happened. But yeah, just super interesting that this, and it makes me mad. It really kind of makes me mad at this point thinking about it. Like, why wasn't I doing something different that probably would have been a little more lucrative? I don't know.
Well, I mean, life has turned out pretty good, so
Things
I don't
are
know.
things are okay. Things are okay. But at that in that era of my life, like I should have. I mean, I should have. There's no shoulds. I wish that I would have been thinking a little differently. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like we are products of the guidance and mentorship or lack of guidance and lack of mentorship around us. And, there's an element of like wayfinding where, I read somewhere recently or someone posted something and it was like, we're constantly getting back to the children inside of us that were told that we were wrong, or like we're constantly reorienting ourselves to who it is we know ourselves to be. And, I think that from the elements of like self satisfaction, in many ways, it's like strong mentors can provide strong direction, but also not having the mentors is also a big piece of feedback and sort of forces you to learn in ways that someone with a strong amount of mentorship does not have the capacity build, right? Because it's like you've earned your stripes, Andrea, and it's something that is not easy. Going to New York after university, I feel like New York is a great place to be broke because there's so many
Yes,
free things to do. And, it's like you either
yes.
want to be really wealthy or you can be a broke student. And like, those are kind of the spaces
There's
to be
two
in.
extremes.
I think that's it. I think that's, and then the wealthy people in New York are subsidizing the free programming for the broke students. I think there's some relationship there. But how did you kind of organize and what did you think of your young self? I mean, you graduate this degree going into advertising. Was that something that you wanted? Like, was it like, I see myself as a career woman in this industry? Or was it like, oh shit, I gotta get a job and like,
No, I
where
wanted
do
it.
I find this? Okay.
No, I did. I mean, it was interesting to me, and I had really that second half of university got much more involved in neurolinguistics and how our brain processes things and neuroscience. And that's sort of how that whole advertising thing kind of came about because I was very curious as to how to sell things to someone or market or promote them. And I was in packaged goods. So in the advertising space I was in. And it was intriguing to me to figure out how do you sell a box of Uncle Ben's rice to someone, in Alaska. Or how do you sell a Norelco electric shaver? That's what they were called at that point. Now it's Philips, but to a 65-year-old guy. Like this was interesting to me. And I also liked it was intriguing to me how a big corporate structure worked. That was interesting to me. So no, I did go after that and I got it. So that I felt like that was a coup. Like I had won a little bit there. It was a really good experience. I did decide through that experience that I didn't really want to stay in that industry. And it was more because of lifestyle than anything else. But all in all, I mean, I learned so much that I still use in my life today from that experience.
Going to ask that, these are such formative years where we are developing the training ground, like I remember in my like post university years, my first job was in the business development program at Macy's, and it's so, and to think of like this rigorous training and these big companies like back then, right? When you had these opportunities to work in a corporate environment in New York, in big industry, at a reputable company, I mean, you are literally making it. I mean, the odds are so stacked against anybody that like the fact that you're able to get in there, there's like reverence for the experience. And then there's such incredible training that you don't even really realize, I think, until after, where like in these young formative years, you're literally beat into, thinking and doing and performing. And my God, I don't think young people have the same, experience. And I have to say, certainly traumatic. Like, I've never heard a young person who's been working in New York at a big company say that it's been easy. It's usually filled with a lot of trauma and it's usually like
It,
really
it
shitty.
is. It is. I mean, and my kids, my son's been working in Boston for now 2 years, and there's a little bit of trauma. I would 100% say
No,
so.
yeah,
100% say
it's
so. For
not,
also for
it's not
interesting
easy.
reasons, right? For sometimes for like I would say there was some trauma for me where I would be sent I would have to go rent a car, drive to Stamford, Connecticut to drop off an envelope and where the headquarters were for Norelco Shavers, and then drive back to Manhattan and, return the car and get back to the office. I mean, it was, and I remember kept thinking to myself, all because of this one envelope. There's all of this expense for this one envelope. And I was the delivery person, in that case. Or waiting, I would have to be the last person to leave the office because I had to wait around for the creative people. And this is in the days of like no computers really. Wait around for the creative people to finish creating, sketching, drawing, whatever they were doing, to then take whatever that was from their hands, go down the elevator in the building, it was on Broadway, to the bottom floor where there was a FedEx office. And it was my job to put it in the envelope and hand it to the FedEx guy. And I remember thinking, this is ridiculous that I am staying here many, many hours just to do that when the creative guys are going down the same elevator to leave. So I think
Oof.
like those things are sort of traumatic.
Oof. Yeah,
I
totally.
mean, there's lots of other traumatic things happening, but those are really memorable experiences for me.
They
Like, what is
are.
going on? What is going
I
on?
mean,
So,
also, what a great opportunity to have that experience of contrast, like something's wrong here, right? Or this doesn't feel right. I don't know what the alternative is, but this doesn't feel right. When you were in these first few years of building your experience, New York is obviously expensive. Were you thinking at that time about savings? Was university paid for, or did you have to pay off student loans? Like, how were you sort of financially navigating these pre-master's program years?
okay, so I was definitely thinking about saving at this point. That was now in my brain. I was lucky enough to not have any student loans, but my husband had med school loans. So we had to start paying med school loans, paying that off. Also, we started thinking about where did we really want to live for the long term and what was that going to look like. And I did start to kind of get creative with asking for money for in certain ways and also creating money in ways. So we figured out how to get money to pay off the entire student loan at once and then pay that money back that we had borrowed at a much lower interest rate to another human, not to not to the bank, right? So we started to be like, this is ridiculous that we're paying all of this interest. Why don't we just ask family members, whoever, can we borrow this money from you to pay this thing off, and then we will pay back you, but at a much lower rate. So I kind of
How
feel
old
like
were
that was
you when
my
this dawned on you?
24 or 5, 25, 25.
Smart. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, huh, this is a better way to do this. This is a better way to do this.
Yeah.
So things like that. Like we did that with a car. We started getting creative. Now we had to figure out who to go to and who might say yes and who might say no and what was our case. So
Yeah. But also a
yeah,
good example of like sales. You know, like
Yes.
how
Yes.
do you position the case? What's the languaging? Who's the target audience?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then
Yes,
also
it's
I
so
think,
true.
and then on this personal level, it's also quite vulnerable. You know, it's like
Yes.
it's getting over the fact that like to get what you want in life, you will have to ask. And asking means being prepared for disappointment and also being prepared for a yes. And I feel like so many people are scared of disappointment that they don't ever end up doing an ask.
Mm-hmm. I see that in my clients right now with the women I work with. I say that my little phrase that I use is, are you giving equal airtime to the possibility that someone might say yes? Right. So we give more airtime we go naturally to the no's that we might get. I think that's a more natural response. I mean, that's how our brain is wired anyway, to try to avoid any pain or disappointment, right? We don't want that. So because of that, we don't ask a lot of the time, even though we have a little glimmer of maybe we should. We just shy away because
Yeah.
it's not.
I mean, it's scary. It's not socialized. I think like young men
No.
and boys are socialized to ask, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
ask, and you might get a no, you might get a yes, but ask and sort of like keep self advocating, right? Keep sort of going
Mm-hmm.
for it. And it sounds like you figured this out at a young age. I mean, 24, 25 is it's a powerful time to realize the power of your clarity and the power of your voice. Okay, so you go get your master's, and like, was the idea of getting your master's like, you know, I'm picking the school because it's where my husband and I want to live in this region? Was it like, I really
No,
want this specific program? Was it
it
like, what was
was
the change?
so the change was, so we moved to Houston from Manhattan. We moved to Houston, Texas, because of
Big
his
change, by the way.
big
Big
change. Yep,
change.
yep, big change because of his residency. His so it
Okay.
was a, I don't know if you know the match, like med school, they match for residency.
Yeah.
So it was a choice in a sense. Like it was, we ranked that, but
Uh
that's where the
huh.
matched us. So we moved to Houston, and then actually this is like another money decision. So I realized at that point, I wasn't loving that advertising. And I felt like I wanted to do something more purposeful. This is my
Mm.
25-year-old brain, more purposeful. So I went and I got my master's and at University of Houston. I also ended up still I was working at the same time, but because my husband was in a University of Texas hospital system, I basically went and got all this education for free. So all of a sudden now, this costs almost no money to get this master's because and I remember working the system hard on this one, getting all of the documentation in line.
Go
How do I
girl.
get
Yeah.
my tuition at a very, very, very reduced rate? I remember we used to joke that I was going to school on coupons, like where was the coupon for the week? So I did that. And at the same time, I was tutoring for standardized tests. And actually, this is a really interesting money conversation. Okay. So I was tutoring for standardized testing, and it was a very lucrative hourly wage at that point. And I got asked to, on a weekly basis, fly in a little private airplane from Houston to Fort Worth, Texas, and tutor the children of the Bass family. So I don't know, are you familiar with the Bass family? Okay. So I would fly on my little Mesa jet, it was Mesa, once a week at, 8 in the morning, or whatever, 7 in the morning, and be there for the whole day, rent a car when I got there and be there for the whole day in their home, and then fly back to Houston at night. And I don't think I had ever seen wealth like that. So thank you, Bass family, for exposing me to that, because those are very, that was another formative experience.
Formative. I mean, was your
Yeah.
husband just like, who are you? You know, like, and I
Yes.
mean, were you just like, who am I? I mean, I
Well,
feel like
I
there's these
was like, who
moments
am
where you're
I? So
like, what
maybe
is
now,
going on?
all right. So maybe I'm 26 or 7 at this point doing this. And yeah, so that's what I would do. And it was an interesting experience. It was a very interesting experience. So that was just one of the families I tutored. Well, the rest of them were in Houston at my kitchen table in my apartment. But I mean, I don't know how that all happened or materialized, but it was a really interesting experience because I just really hadn't. I mean, they had, there was a gate for the guy at the gate. There was the chef. There was, they had people in their home
Yeah.
serving it all different, playing all different roles, right? So that was something new to me to experience. And I just
It's
would
so
sit at the
cool.
big dining room table tutoring all day.
What's really interesting about that is I feel like early exposure to things allows you to plant seeds to go, is this for me? Like would I like this? Or, like, is this like, and when there's no commitment to it or it's not necessarily yours, right? There's this opportunity to try things on for size, and go, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
I do like the chef component, maybe
Right.
I mean, it starts to scaffold something that wasn't there before, which is pretty neat to be able to see that at a young age.
I think so. I think it was neat too to see that they valued education and they wanted their children to have this
Hmm.
experience over the summer and they were willing to just figure out how to make it happen. And that was
I
that.
love that. I mean, I don't even know the sales and marketing strategy you implemented for this role, but I'm like,
I I worked
you're
under
figuring it
it was
out.
a company that I worked for. Thank you, Jay Resch, if you're listening. They're still in existence. And so that's how it all came about.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
so cool. And so, okay, so you finish university. Smart young you figures out how to get it paid. You also figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to be bringing in an income. So, like,
Yep.
you're sort of figuring things out. And then it's time to relaunch yourself, right? You had one
Yeah.
launch where you went into advertising. Now it's like the relaunch.
Yep.
Where's your head at? How are you thinking about life? What's important to you at that time?
So I would say the relaunch was when I finished all of this graduate work and it was now time for my husband he finished residency. So where is he going to get a job? And that search took us to Indianapolis, Indiana, which I had never been to before, had not probably ever been. I think I had never been to Indiana at that point. But we did, this was an interesting thing too. We did, I'm going to say we looked at opportunities from San Diego to Portland, Oregon, to Boston, to Florida. I mean, we looked everywhere throughout the whole country. Nothing was really off limits. And we kind of realized that the best financial opportunity, honestly, was in the Midwest. And even though we had no family there and we had never really lived there, not never really, we had never lived there, we just took a chance and we said yes to the opportunity here. And we've never left. We still live here 26 years later. So that was scary to move somewhere knowing zero people. Also, we were now in this different financial space because now he was actually earning income and I was too. So now we both were in Houston, but it was at a much lower level. I was making more money when we were in Houston than he was at that point. So here we go. We go to Indiana where some things cost the same and some things are a lot less. We buy a house, we buy another car, and I start a new job with my degree in hand, and then I get pregnant. So that's the next chapter, which was
Wow.
planned. But
Okay.
yeah, so now it's what are we going to do? This is a whole other next set of decisions that had to
How did you,
happen.
it's interesting also because there's like an identity shift, right? Like you
Oh
move
yeah.
into a new place and it's like, who am I? Who are these people? Like, what am I,
Yes.
what's
Yes.
my, I have no social capital, or maybe you have some built in social capital because your husband's he's a medical professional. So there's maybe some community there, but it's like, this sort of need to reestablish who you are and also great opportunity, right? Like, who am I now? I'm sure that different places you sort of represent different parts of yourself, right? And now you're sort of arriving to a new place. So when you start to think about some of these bigger inflection points, it sounds like this move to Indiana was like a big inflection point of like stability, of maybe like the first like signs of some financial growth, rather than like, how are we kind of making this work? Were you guys sort of thinking about your investing? Was it like, hey, we, are doing this I'm doing the 401k matching, or, thinking about things like the stock market, or was it, real estate is obviously a good foundational investment. How did you sort of start to think about other ways now that you feel stable, that your money was able to grow?
So I think the first thing was that we took advantage of or said yes to any built-in opportunities that were part of our work situations, right? So before we might have hesitated, like, well, do you really want them pulling that out of our paycheck every week? But now we are all in, or for yes, like if you're gonna match something, let's go for it. So that was very clear. I think at this point too, we pulled away from using our parents' connections in the financial world to help manage our money. And we made our own decisions on who we wanted involved in managing our money. Up until that point, it was kind of just like whoever dad recommended, and we just went with it. But now we wanted to kind of have a clean slate there. So that was a big decision for us. And we also started to think about and quickly had kids. And so putting money away for them, that was a new endeavor. And then, so at this right around, well, probably right around the same time. So we'll go back to my brother. He's now in private equity. So he's giving us some opportunities for some friends and family investing in some of those funds. And that was not your traditional stocks and bonds. That had a little more risk to it. So did we want to do that? So I think there were a lot of questions, and I think we answered them for the most part and like, let's go for it. But maybe out of naivete than anything else, not probably wasn't as calculated as maybe it should have been. So we
But
started to,
community,
but right.
like being, yeah.
Yeah. So I think too, if I think about all like a move and going into a new community, I think really at that point I started to realize again that you just had to ask for things, and connections and relationships were so important. And I learned so much from the other spouses actually of his partner's spouses, who were a lot older than I was. And I would call them and ask questions that, I didn't know. First of all, in terms of what was available in our community, I didn't know because I didn't grow up there and never been there. So I asked a lot of questions. And I think I grew a lot probably in that time personally, just in my confidence and not feeling dumb to ask questions. I will also say that this is actually kind of funny, and this funny, not funny. We realized that the medical benefits did not cover pregnancy. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
shit.
yeah. Oh, shit. So, I'm like, hello, we just assumed that would be part of this. Can we put that in there as a benefit? And we got it. We got it. But like that, just, you had to
Wow.
ask for this stuff. I mean, it seems
Yeah.
crazy I had to ask for that, but that's just an example, right? Of like,
But I mean, that's a powerful ask, and that's something
yeah,
that sets precedence, right? So
right.
like all it takes is one person to sort of show some self-awareness and like, self-advocacy, and that's how movements and things shift,
It's true.
right? Is
So,
like
so
someone is
a
willing
hundred
to say
percent,
something.
100%. So the female spouse of one of my husband's partners said, I knew that you guys were coming and you were a young couple. Everybody else was older. And I pretty much assumed that probably at some point you would want to have children. And so when that occurred, I mean, I kind of said to these guys in the group, I told you so. And never ever think about not having that as part of your benefit package again. So, that was,
That's amazing.
so these are just like little things, right? There's like, it's like stepping
Yeah.
stones. Mm-hmm.
And also, like, yeah, like, again, back to self advocacy, like feeling like you have the power to shape your own life, to push boundaries, to be the first. When did you sort of, and what were some of the inflection points that like got you to start thinking about this next level of self expression, right? Like becoming your own business owner is not not easy. Certainly terrifying. I tell people you want to meet God, go start a company. Like it is, a very challenging space. And not only because it's, especially for someone like yourself who's like used to, hey, I can work X and make money and like, feel this like positive feedback loop around it. What were some of the conversations that you had to have with yourself and then also like as a family to sort of decide like, all right, like this is something that we want to take on, that I want to take on, and how sort of eyes wide open did you sort of enter into that phase?
So I dipped my toe in a little bit. My first kind of venture into owning my own business was really just being an independent contractor for a larger corporate organization. So just being a 1099. So I didn't have any benefits. I really, I only made as much as based on performance. So, and I saw that as almost more of a convenience than anything else because if I didn't want to work, I didn't have to for that. Like it was all performance based. And that was a decision though a little bit made out of fear because I felt like if I locked myself in to some larger corporate role, or I thought I was working in a hospital before then, that I wouldn't have the flexibility that we as a family wanted me to have because my husband had zero flexibility. So we were in this space where like, well, someone's got to be the flexible parent. So this 1099 thing gave me the flexible parent card. However, through that experience, I became kind of disenchanted a little bit and felt like, yes, it was performance based, but there were lots of handcuffs. Like I couldn't do certain things that I thought might create more financial gain for myself. There are a lot of rules. You had to kind of play by the rules. It's performance, but you had to play by the rules. So I didn't like the rules, Shama. And I, at some point, said, if I come up with one more big idea that they say is great, but you cannot act on it, I was going to quit. And that is what I did. Eventually, I just quit and I didn't know what was next. And it was at that point where I hired my very first coach. And I remember we were in a kind of a conference room with a big whiteboard. And she said to me, "Why did you stay there so long? Like, what was it?" And because you're telling me a lot of things that you were not happy about in that role. But what did make you happy? And so I started to explain the things I actually did like about it. And through that conversation, she said to me, "I think you really need to just start your own business doing what you want to do." And I resisted because I felt like there wasn't security in that. Also, it felt like a lot of work. The joke's on me because there was no security in the other thing either, by the way. But it felt less secure. It felt like a lot of work. It felt like a lot of betting on myself, And now I always say, if you're not going to bet on yourself, how can you expect anyone else to bet on you? But at that point, my brain wasn't there to that place yet. So we took a risk and I quit my job and we kind of were like, we'll just figure it out, or quit this 1099 thing and started my own business eventually
How
after
old
about,
were you?
um, I was in my low mid 40s. So yeah,
And you got a
I,
coach, how did you find, like, I feel like admitting that you need help is
yeah,
not easy for any human. And it's like,
no.
like
And
find
that
it.
was
So
through,
how did you admit you needed help?
well, that was, I think what was happening is I kind of put out an SOS and I said, at this point, I was like, hey, I am just open for conversations. I don't know what's next for me. I want to learn from other women. What are you doing? How are you using your skills? What's going on? And I started to just, honestly, I felt like I was like a professional coffee date person there for a little while. And it was that I think there were two people I can think of in particular that said, have you ever considered working with a coach to try to unpack some of this? And no, not really. I didn't really know what that meant necessarily, but I was, referred to someone and I said, okay. And that felt like a risk there too, because what was going to be revealed and what was I getting myself into in terms of cost with that? But it turned out to be the best thing. And that's kind of what spurred me to start my own business. Now, is being a 1099, I was my own business at that point too. But that was different. I was still sort of under a corporate umbrella ish. But now what I'm doing right now is truly, well, what I've been doing for the last 10 years is truly just my own. And I have people that work for me and at this point and all that. But, I didn't know where that was going to go. So what's sort of interesting now, though, is that I'm at the place where I've been working on, I'll call it a fundamental question. What does it actually mean to build something that exists beyond me, right? Beyond you, beyond so in the beginning, it was, let's build something that, I am going to build something that is my own. And now I'm asking, what does it actually mean to build something that exists beyond me? So it's kind of the stage
It's
I'm at now.
powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
those are big questions. You were beginning to say something earlier about the time that it took for you to actually make the move, like the time between the ideas. So like, which that, based on how you just scrunched your nose, I'd say it was crunchy. So tell me
It
sort
was
of
crunch.
between
So
the
yeah.
self-knowingness and then the move, like to do it, like what, like,
So I
did you have to
tested
like think about a budget? Like, how did you prepare yourself?
yeah. So I tested the waters a little bit. I said, okay, so this, I have a coaching business now. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm going to go work for someone else. This was my pledge to myself. And this was great. I had gotten this advice and I still give it to this day. Set a time frame. So I said, I'm going to give myself 3 months. I'm going to work for this other entity in the capacity of a coach for 3 months. And I want to see if I like it, if I like what this, like having your own practice is really all about. And during that time, I also got officially certified. And basically, I had been doing coaching in that 1099 role for 10 years. It just never was called that, which is the irony of this whole thing. And so by week 8, I remember thinking, I really like this. I like this type of work. I don't like working for the person I'm working for. And I don't like the actual clientele that I'm working with. I had liked the clientele I was working with prior to this in that 1099 role. So I'm not even going to finish my 12 weeks. I'm going to get out of this. And that was like April 1st. And I said, by June 15th, I want to have my own first client. That was I'm giving myself whatever that was, 75 days. And I got a new credit card in my own name. And it was one of those zero interest for 12-month kind of credit cards, which I had never had before because I'm someone that just pays all the credit cards off like every month, which we could have a whole discussion about that too. Like sometimes is that, okay. So, but I said to myself, I am not paying 1 ounce of interest on this. I will make all of this money back before I have to pay any interest. So yes, let's use this like carry a balance zero interest thing. But once that interest kicks in, I'm not paying any of it, right? So I'm going to have it all paid off. And that is what happened. That's what happened. So, and what's interesting too, financially, it's like, I did not discuss this with my family. I just did it. I mean, they knew I was starting this own business. So I guess
Totally.
jokes on them. Like, what did they think? How did they think I was starting this in a way? What was I? But the credit card thing, I just was like, this is how we're going to do this. So I needed
I love
capital.
that.
I needed capital. And
Yeah.
so I didn't ask other people for capital at that point. I just used this credit card and kind of, it was motivation too, to get it all paid up and off before I had to pay interest on it. So that was
Oh my God.
really lit a fire under me because I could have gone and asked for capital
Yeah.
at that point, but I didn't. That might have been, in retrospect, a mistake, but that how I did it at that point was this credit card thing. So there you go.
I love that. There's a point in business where I feel like, and I especially see this with women a lot, where we keep investing every dollar we make into the business. And then there's a point where, it's appropriate to start paying yourself,
Yeah,
like good
yeah, yeah.
money. And it's important to start building your life and to think about, taking distributions and where does that go? So how long into your business, obviously in the beginning it's like the money goes straight to you, but then you start to invest and you hire, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like this,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a funny sort of shape, right? That sort of
Yes.
happens when you're building something. And the how you relate to, everyone says keep your personal finances and your business finances separate, and when you are the business owner and you're trying to,
Yeah.
make all the things happen, it's very difficult. So when was the inflection point after you started to hire people where you're like, okay, like I can now pull money back out of the business, or I
Yep.
feel more stable and confident with this business model?
This is a huge topic for anyone starting a business, paying yourself, and when is that tipping point? And I think too many women especially wait too long to start to pay themselves in a way that feels good, right? So they may be paying themselves amounts that just feel kind of like seconds, whatever's left over, we'll call it, versus no, I am a primary resource in this business. And if there wasn't me, it wouldn't be happening, and I need to be compensated for it. So I was pretty good early on paying myself something, I'll call it. But it probably wasn't until year 3 that I got very deliberate in paying myself a salary and then taking distributions on a regular salary, and then taking regular distributions, not just waiting until there was enough, we'll call it. And really because 2 reasons. One, it didn't feel good to me to be like the least paid, employee, we'll call it, of the business. And it kind of I became bitter about it. And then 2, I really looked at like, what do I want to pay myself and contribute to our family? Like it's like kind of strategic decision. These are the things that I want to be covering, the expenses. I also want to be investing. And that's a whole other thing. What am I taking from my business to then go invest in not the business, but other personal investments? And I had to get really good at understanding cash flow in the business, projecting. It kind of took my financial acumen to another level. And I think if you don't have that, or if you're not willing to ask and learn about it, then you're missing out, and you're missing opportunity. And I think that's why a lot of people sometimes think like, oh, I don't know how much longer I can do this, because, right? It's like you're the most expensive employee in you're the least expensive but most overworked employee in the business. And that's not good.
It's not sustainable.
No.
You are in the business of women and their businesses. And so that puts you in this very interesting spot where you get to both support, help, see how other people are strategically growing, be an active part in their success, and undoubtedly learn at the same time for yourself, like have things illuminated. I mean, what a wonderful mirror, right? When you get to sort of see like what are the, how you're evolving and changing as you're supporting others and they're evolving and changing. Can you share a few of the inflection points that maybe you've, like things that you've learned as a result of working with so many powerful women and their businesses, like what are some of the things that you've taken away? And then on the flip side, like what are some of the themes or the things that you've noticed in these high performing women that you think are valuable insights?
Okay, so great question. A couple things come to mind. I think number one, family owned businesses are very tricky for lots of reasons, but finances seem messier in those family owned businesses, and feelings and finances become very much intertwined. So, anyone that's considering having a family owned business, just think about that. And I've observed it now numerous times, and I'm going to say never. It's rare that I feel like things are clean decisions without really, I mean, our feelings are intertwined in all of our decisions, but extra in a family owned business. So there's that. But on a more positive note, when a woman, the women I've worked with that have taken what I would say are risks in investing in properties, owning properties that are connected to their business, or purchasing another business and or acquiring another business and merging it into theirs, mergers and acquisitions, right? Those are risky things. And it's scary for the moment in the moment, but most of the time it brings a lot of joy in the long run, right? It may bring some headaches, but the opportunities that occur once those risks have been taken would never happened if they hadn't taken that risk. And I always say, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And everybody always goes to like, well, I lose all my money. Okay, but you could gain so much too. And you would figure it out. I trust that you would figure it out if it got to a place where you really felt financially strapped. Like some little light bulb would go off in your head and you would figure it out. So I think that taking those risks is really important, and not waiting till all your ducks are lined up in the row, as someone said to me recently.
I
Like, I want
love
to wait
that.
till all my ducks are lined up in a row. Colin Powell had this 40-70 theory. I don't know if you've ever heard this,
I don't know
but
it.
okay. So Colin Powell said that you need to make a decision when you have between 40% and 70% of the information you think you need. So if you wait till you have all your ducks lined up in a row, or over 70%, say, of the information you think would be great to have, it's too late.
Mm.
And if you make a decision without having at least
Wow.
40%, then maybe you're making it prematurely. But between that 40 and 70 is when the best decisions are made. So I kind of
Powerful. Oh,
I kind of go by that. So, and
I love that.
yeah. And I can think of a few times in my own life where I'm just like, okay, we know enough to know. And if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, then okay, we figure it out. That's always, I'm like, we'll figure it out. But a lot of the most successful women that I see can fall into that 40-70.
Mm. That is really powerful. That definitely lands with me. I will remember that, Andrea. So
Yes.
now we've got you, you're thinking about the bigger picture around things. You're sort of thinking about, what does all this mean? What's next? How does
Yeah.
this sort of, turn into, let's call it legacy, and,
Yes.
as we sort of think about, the future. And one of my favorite ways to sort of wrap up our conversations are around the future canon and how you think about a life well lived. And so assuming that, and we all know we'll be living much longer than we likely anticipate,
Yes.
so let's put you at a nice young age of, let's say, 110. You got a lot more living to do, girlfriend, and there's a lot more that is ahead of you. And so as you put yourself into your future self and look backwards onto the body of work that is your life, what is it that comes to you? What is this body of work that you've been building?
I feel like what I have been building is really at the deepest level, like a deeper theoretical level of all of this, is that identity really precedes strategy. So the what I want my legacy to be is that for women to understand or learn or explore that being drives feeling, and feeling drives knowing, which drives doing. So you don't get clarity by gathering more information. You get clarity by deciding who you are first. And I've been applying that to my own business, and I've been excited to see what this brand of She Thinks Big can bring to others. So you have to, if more women can think bigger about what is possible, um, and who they need to be in order to become what they want to become, I think that I will have done a good job. And I think as I evolve too into this next phase, I mean, 110 is a while away. So who am I going to be in these next, right, 50 years or whatever? So I don't know. But I think I can be the next best version of myself, and not sure what that
Yeah,
will entail, but it's exciting to think about. I get
I love
energized by
it.
that thought. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
powerful thought. Okay, last two questions. The first is, we've talked a lot about money from the lens of savings and investing and opportunities and, strategizing and what do you pay yourself and sort of the more technical operational sides of money. But we both know that money can also provide us a tremendous amount of joy and can
Yeah.
be really fun and fabulous. So tell me, what has been one of your most favorite recent ways of spending your money?
Well, in the very recent, we just spent money to go on a trip, myself, my husband, and my two 20 somethings. We went to Jackson, Wyoming. We had never been to Jackson, Wyoming. And we stayed in a fabulous home there for the week. And we did private guides and went through the Grand Tetons, and
Mm,
really an adventure. A lot of adventure. And we really hadn't traveled like that in a while. It did not involve visiting any family. So because we have no family here in Indianapolis, a lot of our travel is attached to some family function or visit, but this one wasn't. And I just kind of was like, we're going to just do this. Like we're not holding back. So I mean, things like I was like, okay, all the groceries are going to be delivered and put away before we get there. We're going to have
yes.
someone at make coming one night and making us a meal. We're going to, I had it all planned out. And that really to me wasn't the most extravagant trip in the world, but it was worth it to get everybody there together.
Mm,
So that just happened a couple weeks ago. And I'm glad because now my kids are off in the world onto their next, eras of their jobs and lives.
thing.
So yeah,
I love that.
that's
And then
it.
my final question, Andrea, is the women who listen to the show love to rally around the women who are on the show. What is it that you're calling in right now? What do you need? What do you want? How can we support you?
I am calling in just more opportunities to share what big thinking is all about. So, whether that's getting in front of an audience or being on another podcast, I would love those opportunities or introductions. And I'm also welcoming more people into my world. We were talking about this before we pressed record, like aggregating all of my content that I've created over the last 10 years or so and putting it out there in a new way. And soon we'll be welcoming people to dive in. So
Wonderful.
there's that.
Andrea
Yeah.
Liebross, the woman, the myth in the flesh. You are brilliant, heart centered, curious. You are my kind of woman. I am so honored to be in community with you. to have you share so openly and vulnerably your life story and to really see what thinking big can do for all of us. And today has certainly been inspiring for me. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me and trusting me in the conversation.
Thank you for listening. This is the conversation we come back to every single week. Real women, real wealth, and what becomes possible when we stop being silent about money. If today's episode moved you, don't let it stop here. Wealth Catalyst is where women go to take it further. Our Freedom Tour salons are gathering women in 32 cities this year. Intimate evenings in homes and private spaces where women talk honestly about money, risk, and what they're building. And if you're ready to go even bigger, join us at the Wealth Catalyst Summit, a full-day event in San Francisco this October. Find your city and claim your seat at wealthcatalyst.com. We'll see you there.